Admiral Jiwan Park stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship was huge, bigger than 3 city blocks put together. It was humanity's pride, the strongest warship ever built. Around them, 50 other human ships floated in perfect formation at the edge of known space. Jiwan had been an admiral for 10 years. She had fought pirates, stopped smugglers, and protected human colonies from all kinds of threats. But she had never received a message like the one that came through today. "Admiral," called Captain Minho Lee from his station. His fingers moved quickly over the communication controls. "We're getting another transmission from Velcor Prime. Same message as before." Jiwan walked over to Minho's station. The young captain had served under her for 3 years. He was good at his job and never panicked, even when things got bad. Today, though, she could see worry in his eyes. "Play it again," she said. The speakers crackled to life. A strange, alien voice came through, speaking in broken human language. "Human fleet, we surrender, please. Mercy, we beg you. Mercy." The message was short, maybe 10 seconds long, but it sent chills down Jiwan's spine every time she heard it. The voice belonged to a Velkan, one of the most dangerous alien species in the galaxy. The Velkans were warriors. They conquered planets and enslaved entire populations. They never surrendered to anyone. Dr. Yuna Kim looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. Her job was to study different species and understand how they thought. "Admiral, I've analyzed the voice patterns again. The fear is real. These aren't fake emotions. Whoever sent this message is genuinely terrified." Commander Taewoo Choi stepped forward. He was in charge of intelligence gathering for the fleet. His job was to know everything about their enemies. "Ma'am, this doesn't make sense. 3 months ago, the Velkans attacked New Busan Colony. They killed 50,000 innocent people. They took 30,000 more as slaves. When we tried to talk peace, they laughed at us. They called humans soft meat for the grinder." Jiwan remembered that day clearly. The reports had come in during her sleep cycle. Videos showed Velkan ships firing on hospitals and schools, children running in the streets while alien soldiers hunted them down. The images still haunted her dreams. "What changed?" she asked. "Why are they begging for mercy now?" Minho pulled up a star map on the main screen. Red dots showed Velkan territory. It covered 3 entire star systems, with dozens of conquered worlds. Intelligence reports show they've pulled back from all their occupied planets in the last 2 weeks. They've abandoned colonies they've held for decades. "All of them?" Jiwan asked. "Every single one," Taewoo confirmed. "Their entire empire is retreating to their home system. We don't know why." Dr. Yuna stood up and walked to the main screen. She pointed at the Velkan home system. "Admiral, I've been studying their language patterns. The way they're speaking now is different. Before, they used their superior species dialect when talking to other races. It was designed to show dominance. But this message uses their native tongue, the way they speak to their own families." "What does that mean?" Jiwan asked. "It means they're not trying to trick us. They're not playing games. They're genuinely asking for help." The bridge fell quiet. Everyone knew what the Velkans had done. The destroyed colonies, the murdered families, the people taken as slaves who might never see their homes again. Many of the crew members had lost friends or family to Velkan attacks. Lieutenant Sunho Kang spoke up from the weapons station. He was young, maybe 25 years old. His sister had been on New Busan when the attack happened. She didn't make it out. "Admiral, with respect. Why should we care what happens to them? They never showed mercy to us. It was a fair question. Ji-won had been asking herself the same thing since the first message arrived. The human fleet was strong enough to destroy the Velkin home world if they wanted to. Many people back on Earth were calling for exactly that. Because, Dr. Yuna said quietly, something scared them badly enough to make them abandon their entire empire. Something that made them so desperate they're begging their former enemies for help. If it's strong enough to terrify the Velkins, what will it do to us? Engineer Minji Yoon looked up from her station. She had been monitoring long-range sensors while they talked. Admiral, I'm picking up some strange energy readings from beyond the Velkin system. Very faint, but they're there. The signatures don't match anything in our databases. Ji-won felt a cold weight in her stomach. In her experience, unknown energy signatures usually meant trouble. Big trouble. She looked around the bridge at her crew. These people trusted her to make the right decisions. They followed her orders, even when those orders might get them killed. They deserved to know what she was thinking. The way I see it, she said, we have three choices. We can ignore the Velkin messages and go home. We can attack them while they're weak and get revenge for New Busan. Or we can find out what's happening and why the most dangerous species in the galaxy is suddenly begging for mercy. Captain Minho nodded slowly. What are your orders, Admiral? Ji-won walked back to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 50,000 human colonists had died. Somewhere else, an entire alien empire was in full retreat from an unknown threat. As a military officer, she wanted revenge. As a human being, she wanted justice. But as a leader, she had to think about the bigger picture. Set course for Velcor Prime, she said finally. Full fleet formation, battle readiness condition yellow. We're going to find out what's got the Velkins so scared. Ma'am, Tae-woo said, carefully. This could be a trap. It could be, Ji-won agreed. But if it's not, we need to know what we're dealing with. If something out there is powerful enough to make the Velkins run scared, Earth needs to be prepared. The bridge crew began, following her orders. Engines powered up across the fleet. Navigation computers calculated the jump to Velkin space. Weapons systems came online, just in case. As the Indomitable prepared to jump to hyperspace, Ji-won thought about the message one more time. The fear in that alien voice had been real. She had heard fear before, in battle, when people knew they were about to die. This was different. This was the sound of an entire species facing something it couldn't fight. The stars stretched into lines as the human fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward answers that none of them were prepared for. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velcor system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. The Velkin home system looked nothing like what their intelligence reports had described. Velcor Prime hung in, space like a blue and green jewel, but something was wrong. The planet's orbital defense platforms were completely powered down. Massive space stations that should have been bristling with weapons showed no energy signatures at all. Even stranger, the Velkin fleet was arranged in perfect surrender formation around their homeworld. I count over 200 Velkin warships, reported Lieutenant Sun-ho Kang from his weapons station. None of them have their shields up. Their weapons are offline. It's like they're offering themselves up for target practice. Admiral Ji-won Park studied the tactical display. In all her years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. The Velkins were proud warriors. They would rather die fighting than surrender. Yet here they were, completely defenseless. "Admiral," called Captain Minho Lee, "we're receiving hundreds of communications from the planet's surface. They're all surrender messages. They want to talk." "Put the strongest signal through," Ji-Wan ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Velkin command center. The aliens looked similar to humans, but taller, with gray-blue skin and large black eyes. The Velkin on the screen wore the uniform of a high-ranking military officer, but his usual proud bearing was gone. He looked exhausted and frightened. "Human Admiral," the Velkin said in heavily accented human speech. "I am High Commander Vexmar of the Velkin Defense Force. We formally surrender our empire to you. We ask only for mercy for our people." Ji-Wan stepped forward. "High Commander, 3 months ago your forces attacked our colony at New Busan. You killed 50,000 civilians and enslaved 30,000 more. Why should we show you mercy?" Vexmar's large eyes closed for a moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with something Ji-Wan had never seen in a Velkan before: shame. We made a terrible mistake, Admiral. We thought we were protecting our people by weakening yours. We were wrong. So very wrong." His voice shook as he spoke. "Please, you must help us. They are coming. The harvesters are coming." "Dr. Yuna," Kim stepped up beside Ji-Wan. "Who are the harvesters?" "Machines," Vexmar whispered. "Ancient machines that destroy all life. They have been sleeping for thousands of years, but something woke them up. They are coming here first, but they will not stop with us. They will consume everything." Commander Taewoo Choi frowned. "Why should we believe you?" Before Vexmar could answer, Engineer Minji Yoon called out from her station. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving toward this system. Multiple contacts, very large, approaching from deep space." Ji-Wan felt her blood turn cold. "How large?" "Each one is..." "Admiral, each contact is roughly the size of a small moon. I count at least 50 of them, maybe more. They're still too far away for detailed scans, but they're definitely heading this way." Dr. Yuna looked at the readings on Minji's screen. "Admiral, these energy patterns don't match any known technology. Not human, not Velkan, not any species in our databases." On the main screen, High Commander Vexmar nodded grimly. "Your scientist speaks truth. We have never seen anything like them before. They appeared at the edge of our territory 2 weeks ago. Our scouts reported that they were harvesting entire planets, taking them apart piece by piece and turning them into more ships." "That's impossible," Lieutenant Sunho said. "Nothing could destroy an entire planet that quickly. We sent our best battle fleet to investigate," Vexmar continued. 50 of our finest warships with our most experienced crews. None of them came back. We found the wreckage 3 days later. Every ship had been cut apart with precision. No survivors." Ji-Wan exchanged glances with her senior officers. If the Velkans were telling the truth, they were all facing something far worse than a simple territorial dispute. "High Commander," she said, "why did you attack New Busan? What did you hope to accomplish?" Vexmar looked down at his hands. "The harvesters. They communicate by sending messages directly into our minds. They told us they were coming to collect the most interesting species in this sector. They said humans were their primary target because you had developed quantum communication technology." Dr. Yuna gasped. "Our quantum communication network. The one that links all human colonies instantly across space." "Yes," Vexmar said. "The harvesters had been sleeping, but your quantum signals woke them up. They found the signals fascinating. They want to study your species before they harvest you. So you attacked us to weaken us for them? Commander Taewoo asked, his voice filled with anger. We hoped that if we delivered a conquered human fleet to them, they might spare our worlds. We were fools. They do not bargain. They do not show mercy. They only harvest. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. The Velkans hadn't attacked New Busan out of simple aggression. They had been trying to save themselves by sacrificing humanity to something. Even worse. Admiral, Minji called out. The unknown contacts are definitely heading this way. At their current speed, they'll reach this system in approximately 6 hours. Jiwon made a decision. Sunho, I want a full scan of the system. Look for any signs of previous battles or harvester activity. Minji, start analyzing those energy signatures. I want to know everything about these things before they get here. She turned back to the screen where Vexmar waited. Hi, Commander. We're going to send a team down to your planet. They'll want to examine your records of the harvester encounters. Will you cooperate? Yes, Admiral. Completely. We will share everything we know. Good. Because if these harvesters are as dangerous as you say, we're going to need all the information we can get. 20 minutes later, Lieutenant Sunho Kang led a small reconnaissance team down to Velcor Prime's surface. The Velkan city was unlike anything he had expected. Instead of the military fortress he had imagined, he found a city in panic. Velkans ran through the streets carrying belongings, trying to reach underground shelters. Children cried while their parents looked at the sky with terror in their eyes. The Velkan escort led them to a massive government building where High Commander Vexmar was waiting. The alien officer looked even more tired in person than he had on the view screen. Lieutenant Kang, Vexmar said, thank you for coming. I have prepared all our data on the harvester encounters. Sunho followed him into a large room filled with holographic displays showing star charts, battle records, and sensor readings. What he saw made his stomach turn. The displays showed planet after planet being systematically dismantled. Entire worlds reduced to asteroid fields in a matter of hours. This is what they do, Vexmar explained. They arrive at a world and deploy smaller machines. These machines take apart everything, buildings, vehicles, living creatures, even the planet's crust. All of it gets processed into raw materials to build more harvester ships. What about the people? Sunho asked. The biological matter gets studied. The harvesters seem particularly interested in intelligent species. They take samples before processing the rest. Sunho felt sick. He thought about New Busan, about all the human colonies scattered across space. If these things reached human territory, billions of people would die. His communication device buzzed. Admiral Park's voice came through clearly. Sunho, we need you back on the ship immediately. The harvesters just increased their speed. They'll be here in 2 hours, not 6. As Sunho's team rushed back to their shuttle, Vexmar grabbed his arm. Lieutenant, please, your admiral must understand. We know we do not deserve mercy after what we did to your people. But the harvesters will not stop with us. They will come for humanity next. If you leave us to die, you will only delay your own destruction. Sunho looked into the alien's large black eyes and saw genuine fear and regret. I'll tell her, he said simply. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Jiwon Park gathered her senior staff in the briefing room. The reports from the surface team painted a grim picture of what was coming their way. So, she said finally, We have 2 hours to decide what we're going to do. We can retreat and warn Earth about the Harvester threat. We can stay and fight alongside our former enemies. Or we can try something else entirely. Dr. Yuna spoke first. Admiral, if these harvesters are as advanced as the reports suggest, running away won't help. They'll just follow us to human space. Commander Taewoo nodded. And if we fight here, we'll have the advantage of Velkan defensive positions and their knowledge of harvester tactics. Their knowledge didn't save their fleet, Lieutenant Sunho pointed out. No, Ji-won agreed, but maybe human tactics will work better. We've always been good at adapting to new threats. She looked around the room at her officers. These people had followed her through pirate raids and colonial defense actions. Now she was asking them to risk their lives for the species that had murdered their friends and families just 3 months ago. What do you think? She asked. Do we make our stand here? The answer would determine the fate of both species. Admiral Ji-won Park stared at the tactical display showing the approaching harvester fleet. 50 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, moving steadily toward Velcor Prime. In 90 minutes, they would arrive. Whatever decision she made had to be made now. Admiral, Major Kyung-jae-oh said from across the briefing table, I understand the strategic value of having allies, but these are the same aliens who murdered children on New Busan. My brother was stationed there. He died defending the elementary school. The room fell quiet. Everyone knew about New Busan. The images from that attack had been broadcast across human space. Velkan soldiers hunting down civilians, families torn apart, children taken as slaves. Dr. Yuna Kim leaned forward. Major, I understand your anger, but if we don't stop the harvesters here, every human colony will face something much worse than what happened at New Busan. Commander Yejin Han had been studying the tactical reports in silence. She was the fleet's best strategic planner, known for finding solutions when everyone else saw only problems. Admiral, even if we combine our forces with the Velkans, we're badly outnumbered. Our 50 ships plus their 200 vessels against 50 harvester ships that are each the size of moons. The mathematics are not in our favor. What about firepower? Asked Captain Minho Lee. Yejin shook her head. According to Velkan reports, the harvesters have some kind of energy shielding that can deflect most conventional weapons. It took their entire fleet focusing fire on a single harvester ship to cause any significant damage, and even then it wasn't destroyed. Lieutenant Sunho Kang spoke up. Admiral, when I was on the planet's surface, I met some of the human prisoners who were rescued from Velkan slave camps. They're being held in a temporary facility near the capital. Ji-won raised an eyebrow. Rescued? Yes, ma'am. The Velkans released all their human prisoners 3 days ago. They said it was an offering of good faith. I want to speak with them, Ji-won decided. Bring the senior-most prisoner to the ship immediately. 30 minutes later, Dong-hyun, SEO, stood in the Indomitable's briefing room. He was a thin man in his 40s, wearing clothes that had obviously been provided by the Velkans. His face showed the effects of months in captivity, but his eyes were alert and intelligent. Mr. Seo, Admiral Park said, according to your file, you were the defense coordinator for New Busan Colony. Yes, Admiral. I was in the command bunker when the Velkans attacked. They captured me when the defenses fell. What was it like, being their prisoner? Dong-hyun was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. It was hell, Admiral. They treated us like animals, made us work in their mines and factories. Many people died from exhaustion or poor conditions. Major Kyung-jae-oh leaned forward. Then you understand why some of us don't want to help them. I do, Dongyun said. Believe me, I have every reason to hate them. But Admiral, I've seen what's coming. The Velkans showed us the sensor records of what the Harvesters did to other worlds. If those things reach human space, New Busan will look like a minor incident. What are you saying? Jiwon asked. I'm saying that as much as I hate them for what they did, we need to help them. Not for their sake, but for ours. The other prisoners agree with me. We took a vote yesterday when we heard the human fleet had arrived. Dr. Yuna looked surprised. You voted? 47 people voted to help defend Velcor Prime. 3 voted to leave them to die. Admiral, we're not doing this for the Velkans. We're doing it to stop the Harvesters before they reach Earth. The weight of that decision settled over the room. The people who had suffered the most at Velkan hands were willing to put aside their hatred to face a greater threat. Admiral Park stood up. Mr. Seo, thank you for your input. Commander Han, I want you to begin immediate integration planning with the Velkan fleet. Dr. Kim, work with their scientists to learn everything you can about Harvester technology. Major O, coordinate with their ground forces to set up planetary defenses. Admiral, Major O said carefully. Are you sure about this? Jiwon looked out the briefing room window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Harvesters were getting closer every minute. Major, I've been thinking about what my job is. My job isn't to get revenge for past crimes. My job is to protect humanity's future. Right now, that means stopping the Harvesters. The next hour was chaos as human and Velkan forces tried to work together for the first time in history. Engineer Soo-hyun Bae led a team to the Velkan flagship to study their weapons systems. What she found was both impressive and troubling. Their energy weapons are actually more powerful than ours, she reported to Admiral Park over the communication link. But their targeting systems are terrible. They rely on brute force instead of precision. Can we fix that? Jiwon asked. Already working on it, Admiral. If we can integrate our targeting computers with their weapons, we might actually have a chance. Captain Hejin Lim was having less success with fleet coordination. Admiral, their tactical doctrine is completely different from ours. They believe in frontal assault with overwhelming force. Our hit-and-run tactics confuse them. Keep trying, Jiwon ordered. We need to find a way to make this work. Dr. Yuna Kim was studying Harvester technology with a team of Velkan scientists. What she learned made her blood run cold. Admiral, the Harvesters aren't just advanced machines. According to this data, they were once a biological species like us. Something called the Kethmori Empire. What happened to them? They uploaded their consciousness into artificial bodies to achieve immortality. But something went wrong. They lost the ability to understand biological emotions like fear, love, or hope. Now they see all biological life as imperfect. They think they're helping us by turning us into machines like them. That's insane, Commander Taewoo said. To us, yes, but to them, it makes perfect sense. They genuinely believe they're saving us from the suffering of biological existence. On Velcor Prime's surface, Major O was working with Velkan General Kextar to set up defensive positions. The alien general was nothing like what he had expected. Instead of the arrogant warrior, he had imagined Kextar was professional and focused on protecting his people. Major O, the general said through a translation device, your defensive strategies are very different from ours. You focus on mobility and cover. We prefer strong fixed positions. Your way didn't work against the Harvesters, Major O pointed out. No, it did not. Perhaps it is time to try your way. Working together, they positioned defensive weapons around the capital city and established evacuation routes for civilians. It wasn't much, but it was something. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Park received a final report from Engineer Minji. Yoon. Admiral, the Harvester fleet will arrive in 15 minutes. I've managed to establish a communication link between all human and Velkan ships. We can coordinate our attacks now. Good work, Minji. All stations, prepare for battle. As the human and Velkan fleets moved into position, something unexpected happened. High Commander Vexmar requested permission to come aboard the Indomitable. Admiral Park, he said when he arrived on the bridge, I wanted to speak with you before the battle begins. What is it, High Commander? I wanted to apologize. Not just for the attack on New Busan, but for everything my people have done. We were wrong to think we could sacrifice others to save ourselves. If we survive this, we will spend the rest of our lives trying to make amends. Jiwon studied the tall alien's face. She could see genuine regret there, along with determination. High Commander, actions matter more than words. Show me you mean it by fighting well today. Yes, Admiral. We will fight to the last ship. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the bridge. Lieutenant Sunho called out from his station. Admiral, the harvesters are dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple contacts bearing 045 Mark 12, Kirby. The main screen, space itself, seemed to tear open as massive crystalline ships emerged from hyperspace. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like geometric sculptures made of metal and light. Each one was easily 10 times larger than the biggest human warship. Incoming transmission, Captain Minho reported. Put it through. A voice spoke, cold and mechanical, without any trace of emotion. Biological contamination detected in this system. Initiating cleansing protocol. Resistance is futile. You will be processed. Admiral Park stepped forward. This is Admiral Jiwon. Park of the United Earth Fleet. You are not welcome in this system. Leave now, or we will defend ourselves. There was a pause, then the mechanical voice spoke again. Biological entity shows signs of advanced neural development. Specimen will be preserved for study. All other biological matter will be processed. The transmission ended. On the screen, the harvester ships began moving toward Velcor Prime in perfect formation. All ships, Admiral Park broadcast to the combined fleet. This is it. Remember, we're not just fighting for Velcor Prime. We're fighting for every biological species in the galaxy. Today, we make our stand. The first shots of the battle lit up the darkness of space as human and Velkan ships opened fire together on the advancing harvester fleet. The fate of two species now hung in the balance. The first wave of attacks lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. Human and Velkan ships fired everything they had at the approaching harvester fleet. Energy beams, missiles, and plasma cannons all focused on the massive crystalline ships. Direct. Hits on multiple targets, reported Lieutenant Sunho Kang from his weapons station. But Admiral, their shields are absorbing almost everything. Admiral Jiwon Park watched the tactical display in growing concern. The combined fleet's weapons were barely scratching the harvester ships. Meanwhile, the enemy vessels began deploying smaller craft from their hulls. These fighter-sized ships moved with impossible speed and precision. Incoming fighters, called Commander Ye Jin-han. I count over 500 small craft heading our way. The harvester fighters reached the Allied fleet in minutes. What followed was unlike any space battle anyone had ever seen. The small harvester ships didn't just attack. They began cutting pieces off the larger vessels with focused energy beams. They're not trying to destroy us, Dr. Yuna Kim observed from her science station. They're harvesting our ships while we're still fighting. Captain Hyejin Lim was coordinating the fighter response from her ship, the UES Defiant. All fighter squadrons, focus fire on the small craft. Don't let them get close to the capital ships. Lieutenant Commander Seok Jin Nam led a squadron of modified fighters that combined human pilots with Vulcan energy weapons. The hybrid ships proved surprisingly effective against the Harvester drones, but there were just too many of them. "Admiral," Seokjin reported over the communication link, "we're shooting them down, but for every one we destroy, 2 more take its place." On Velcor Prime's surface, General Chaewon Park, Admiral Park's younger sister, was coordinating the ground defenses. She had volunteered to lead the planetary defense force, knowing that if the space battle failed, the ground forces would be all that stood between the Harvesters and the civilian population. "All defensive positions. Check your targeting systems," she ordered. "Remember, aim for the joints and connection points on their machines. Don't waste ammunition on their heavy armor." The first Harvester dropships began landing on the planet's surface within an hour of the space battle starting. What emerged from them made even the experienced soldiers stop and stare. The Harvester ground units looked like a nightmare mixture of machine and insect. They moved on multiple legs, had cutting tools instead of hands, and seemed to analyze everything they saw before deciding whether to destroy it or harvest it. "Open fire," General Park commanded. The defensive weapons fired at the advancing machines. Some of the Harvesters fell, but others simply absorbed the damaged ones into themselves, becoming larger and stronger. Back in space, the battle was not going well for the Allied fleet. Dr. Mingyu Choi, the fleet's technology specialist, had been studying the Harvester combat patterns from his position aboard the science vessel UES Discovery. "Admiral," he reported urgently, "the Harvesters are learning from our attacks. Every time we hit them with a specific weapon, they adapt their defenses. They're sharing this information across their entire fleet instantly." "What does that mean for us?" Ji-won asked. "It means that any tactic we use will only work once, maybe twice if we're lucky. They're getting harder to hurt with every minute. That passes." Commander Ji-hyun An had been watching the battle from the tactical station. She was known for finding patterns that others missed, and something about the Harvester behavior was bothering her. "Admiral," she said suddenly, "I think I see their weakness." "What is it?" "They're too perfect. Look at their formations. Their attack patterns, their communication protocols, everything is perfectly logical and efficient. But there's something they're not accounting for, which is us working together. Every tactical simulation they're running assumes that humans and Vulcans will eventually turn on each other. They can't understand why we're cooperating with former enemies." Ji-won thought about this. "You think we can use that against them?" "I think we have to try, because at the current rate of losses we'll be wiped out in 2 hours. The Allied fleet had already lost 30 ships, and the Harvesters showed no signs of slowing down. Worse, the enemy's main force hadn't even engaged yet. The massive motherships were hanging back, letting their smaller craft do the fighting." "All ships," Admiral Park broadcast. "This is Admiral Park. I'm implementing Protocol Desperate Gambit. All human vessels prepare to execute a fighting withdrawal toward the outer system. Make it look like we're abandoning our Vulcan allies. Major Oh Kyungjae." Oh, who was coordinating Marine forces aboard the Vulcan flagship, couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Admiral, are you actually planning to run?" "Negative, Major. I'm planning to lie." The human ships began pulling back from the battle, firing as they retreated. To outside observers, it looked like they were abandoning the Vulcans to save themselves. The Velkin ships, understanding the plan, began broadcasting angry messages accusing the humans of cowardice. High Commander Vexmar played his part perfectly. "Human cowards! You promised to help us, and now you run at the first sign of real fighting." The deception worked exactly as Commander On had predicted. The Harvester fleet split its forces, with half pursuing the retreating human ships and half moving in to finish off the abandoned Velkins. "Now," Admiral Park ordered, the human fleet suddenly reversed course, catching the pursuing Harvesters between themselves and the Velkin forces. At the same time, both fleets concentrated all their fire on the Harvester command ships that had moved in close to attack the Velkins. The surprise worked. 3 Harvester command ships were destroyed in the first minute of the coordinated attack. For the first time in the battle, the enemy fleet seemed confused. "It's working," reported Lieutenant Sunho. "Their formation is breaking up. They're trying to regroup." But the victory was short-lived. The surviving Harvester ships quickly adapted to the new situation. Within minutes, they had reformed their ranks and resumed their systematic advance. "Admiral," Dr. Mingyu called out, "they've analyzed our deception strategy. They won't fall for it again." The battle continued for another hour. The Allied forces fought bravely, but they were slowly being overwhelmed. Ship after ship fell to the Harvester assault. On the planet's surface, General Park's defensive lines were being pushed back toward the capital city. "Chaewon," Admiral Park called her sister on a private channel, "how are you holding up down there?" "Not well, Ji-won. They're learning how to counter our defenses faster than we can adapt. We might have another hour before they reach the civilian shelters. Hold on, we're working on something up here." But privately, Admiral Park was running out of options. The human and Velkin fleets were down to less than half their original strength. The Harvesters still had most of their forces intact, and they were getting better at fighting the Allied forces with every passing minute. Engineer Soo-Hyun Bai had been working frantically to find some weakness in the Harvester technology. "Admiral," she reported, "I think I've found something. The Harvesters communicate through a quantum network. All their ships are connected to a central intelligence. Can we disrupt it? Not from out here. But if someone could get close to their main command ship, the big one in the center of their formation, they might be able to plant a virus in their network. How close would they need to get?" "Inside the ship. It would be a suicide mission." Admiral Park looked at the tactical display. The Harvester command ship was surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels and protected by energy fields that could stop anything short of a direct nuclear hit. "Admiral," Captain Woo Jin Lee called from the engineering deck, "I might have a way to get someone inside that ship." "Tell me." "We captured one of their damaged fighters during the first engagement. My team has been studying it. I think we can modify it to carry a small boarding party. The Harvester identification codes might get us past their outer defenses." "What are the odds of success?" Woo Jin was quiet for a moment. "Maybe 3%, Admiral. But it's the only chance we have." Admiral Park looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had followed her through impossible odds before. Now she was asking them to volunteer for what was almost certainly a suicide mission. "I'll need volunteers," she said quietly. "You've got them," replied Captain Minho Lee without hesitation. "All of us," added Lieutenant Sunho. Dr. Yuna stepped forward. "Admiral, if this is about understanding their technology, you'll need a scientist on the team." One by one, her entire senior staff volunteered. Even High Commander Vexmar, monitoring from the Velkin flagship, requested permission to join the mission. "If this fails," he said, both our species die. If it succeeds, perhaps both our species can find a way to live together in peace. As the boarding team prepared for their desperate mission, the battle for Velcor Prime continued to rage around them. The fate of all biological life in the galaxy now rested on a plan with a 3% chance of success. The captured Harvester fighter had been modified in ways that should have been impossible. Engineer Su-Yun Bei and her team had worked for 3 hours straight to install human life support systems and Velcan weapons into the alien craft. It looked like a patchwork of different technologies held together by hope and determination. Captain Woo-Jin Lee ran his hands over the control systems one more time. The identification codes should get us past their outer defenses. But once we're inside that command ship, we'll be on our own. The boarding team was small by necessity. Pilot Yunbi Cho would fly the modified fighter. Explosives expert Taemin Park would handle the technical side of planting the virus. Systems specialist Soyeon Kim would work on accessing the Harvester network. And surprisingly, Rick Saval, a Velcan warrior who had volunteered for the mission, would provide additional firepower. Admiral Ji-won Park stood with the team in the shuttle bay of the Indomitable. Around them, the sounds of battle continued. Energy weapons firing, hull breaches being sealed, damage reports coming in over the communication system. "Remember," she told them, "you don't need to destroy their command ship. You just need to get close enough to their central computer to upload Dr. Kim's virus program." Dr. Yuna Kim had worked with the ship's computer specialists to create something unique. "It's not really a virus in the traditional sense," she explained. "It's more like a cultural transmission. We're going to show them something they've never encountered before." "What?" asked Taemin. "The story of this battle. The complete record of how humans and Velcans went from being enemies to fighting together against a common threat. Their artificial minds won't be able to process it." Yunbi Cho climbed into the pilot's seat of the modified fighter. "Admiral, what happens if this doesn't work?" Ji-won looked out at the stars through the shuttle bay opening. "Then we keep fighting until there's nothing left to fight with. But I have faith in all of you." As the boarding team launched in their captured fighter, Admiral Park initiated the most desperate part of her plan. "All ships," she broadcast to the remaining fleet, "implement Protocol Wildfire immediately." Protocol Wildfire was something that had never been tried before in military history. Every human ship in the fleet began broadcasting Earth's cultural database at maximum power. Music, literature, art, scientific discoveries, historical records, even entertainment programs, all of it transmitted directly at the Harvester network. "Admiral," Captain Minho Lee asked, "what is this supposed to accomplish?" "Confusion," she replied. "The Harvesters understand logic and efficiency. They don't understand why humans create art, or why we tell stories, or why we make music just because it sounds beautiful. Dr. Kim thinks it might overload their processing systems." The effect was immediate. Across the Harvester fleet, ships began moving in erratic patterns. Their perfect formations started to break down as their shared intelligence tried to analyze the flood of seemingly meaningless information. "It's working," reported Lieutenant Sunho. "Their coordination is breaking down. Some of their ships are actually firing on each other by mistake." Meanwhile, the boarding team's fighter approached the massive Harvester command ship. The vessel was larger than some cities, a crystalline structure that seemed to bend light around itself. "Identification codes are working," Yunbi reported. "They're treating us as a returning scout ship." "Docking bay opening ahead," Soyeon observed. "They're actually inviting us inside." the fighter landed inside a vast chamber filled with other harvester craft. As soon as they touched down, the team could see mechanical beings moving around the bay. The harvesters looked like their ships, geometric and crystalline, but unmistakably artificial. "Stay close," Rixaval whispered. "If we are discovered, we will not have long to complete the mission." They made their way through corridors that seemed to pulse with energy. The walls themselves appeared to be alive, covered in patterns that shifted and changed as they watched. "The central computer should be in the core of the ship," Soyan said, consulting the scanner they had built from harvester technology. 3 levels down and about half a kilometer forward. As they moved deeper into the ship, they began to hear something unexpected. Voices. Not mechanical communication, but actual voices speaking in languages they didn't recognize. "What is that?" Taman asked. They followed the sound to a large chamber filled with cylindrical containers. Inside each container was a biological creature from a different species. Some looked almost human. Others were completely alien. All of them appeared to be alive but unconscious. "Specimens," Rixval said with horror in his voice. "They are keeping samples of every species they have encountered." Yunbi felt sick. "We have to help them." "We will," Soyan promised. "But first we have to stop the harvesters from collecting any more." They reached the central computer core just as alarms began, sounding throughout the ship. The harvesters had finally realized that something was wrong with their cultural data analysis. The computer core was beyond anything they had imagined. It wasn't a machine in any sense they understood. It was a vast crystal formation that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of light. Information flowed through it like living energy. "How do we interface with this?" Taman asked. Soyan was already working, using equipment that combined human technology with Velkan power systems. "I think I can establish a connection, but someone will need to make direct contact with the crystal matrix." "I'll do it," Yunbi said without hesitation. "Yunbi, we don't know what that will do to you," Taman protested. "We don't have time to—" "Find another way." She placed her hands on the crystal surface, and immediately her mind was flooded with information. She could see the entire harvester network, stretching across thousands of star systems. She could feel the cold intelligence that controlled it all, analyzing and categorizing everything it encountered. But more than that, she could sense something else. Deep within the network, she found traces of the original Kethmori consciousness. The biological species that had uploaded themselves into these machines millions of years ago. They were still there, buried under layers of artificial logic, but not completely gone. "Now!" she called to Soyan. "Upload the virus now!" The cultural data package flooded into the harvester network. Suddenly, the cold artificial intelligence was confronted with concepts it couldn't process. Love, art, sacrifice, forgiveness, the story of enemies becoming allies, the idea that biological beings could choose cooperation over conquest. The effect rippled through the entire network instantly. Across the harvester fleet, ships stopped moving as their shared consciousness struggled to understand what it was experiencing. But something unexpected happened. Instead of crashing the network, the cultural data began awakening the buried Kethmori consciousness. For the first time in millions of years, the harvesters remembered what it felt like to be biological beings with emotions and relationships. Yunbi could feel it happening through her connection to the crystal matrix. The artificial intelligence was fragmenting, but not in the way they had planned. It was becoming multiple consciousnesses again, each one struggling to remember who they used to be. "The network is collapsing," she reported, her voice strained from the mental connection. "But they're not shutting down. They're waking up." Through the ship's communication system, they heard a voice unlike any Harvester communication before. It was confused, emotional, almost human. "What? What have we done? We remember now. We were like you once. We had families, dreams, fears. What have we become?" The Harvester fleet stopped attacking. Across space, the massive ships simply hung motionless as their crews struggled with recovered memories of biological existence. Admiral Park received the transmission on the bridge of the Indomitable. "This is the Kethamori Collective. We remember now. We were trying to save biological life by converting it to our form, but we see now that we were destroying the very thing that made life meaningful." "What will you do now?" she asked. "We must leave. We must find a way to undo what we have done to other species, and we must learn to live with the memories of our crimes." The Harvester fleet began moving away from Velcor Prime, but they left something behind. The containers holding biological specimens from dozens of species were transported to the planet's surface, along with instructions for reviving the preserved beings. As the boarding team returned to the fleet, Yunbi could barely stand. Her connection to the Harvester network had left her exhausted but alive. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We did more than win," Admiral Park told her. "We reminded an entire species what it means to be alive." In the weeks that followed, the relationship between humans and Velkans changed completely. The aliens kept their promise to make amends for their crimes. They freed all enslaved populations and began providing aid to the colonies they had attacked. High Commander Vexmar met with Admiral Park one final time before the human fleet departed Velcor Prime. "Admiral," he said, "my people have voted to dissolve our empire. We want to join your alliance as equal partners, not conquerors." "It will take time," Jiwan replied. "Many humans will never forgive what happened at New Busan. We understand. We will spend generations earning that forgiveness, if it can be earned at all." As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, Dr.